Another day in another Democrat city with a budget deficit. These folks just raise taxes after raising taxes after raising taxes, and still they run a budget deficit every single time. It's crazy. First up, we got Chicago and Mayor Brandon Johnson. Let's jump into it.
And it's a reasonable expectation. Corporations that continue to benefit from Trump's cuts to all the other services that we rely upon, asking them to put more skin in the game, that's a reasonable expectation.
Mayor Brandon Johnson still thinks that there's a path forward for his millionaire and billionaires tax. He wants to use that money to help make up for a $130 million budget shortfall. So we got Brett Bagansky here. Now, Brett, the mayor did not sign, but also did not veto this budget.
So that's what happened back in December. So this is the budget we're working on. So we're in that midpoint right now. So here's how that ended up working. So by taking no action, the budget ended up passing. You may remember it was $16.7 billion. And it was supposed to close a $1.2 billion budget gap, which included selling Chicagoans' outstanding debt to collectors and selling advertising spots on city light poles and cars. However, the mayor said not one person or company has decided to buy into those proposals, and the mayor criticized the alders who signed the alternative budget by not passing his proposals like a corporate head tax. But at the same time, the mayor is saying his progressive revenue measures are outperforming expectations like online sports gambling taxes and social media taxes. So the mayor feels the city should take it a step further by implementing a millionaire's and or a billionaire's tax.
Progressive revenue is structurally and economically sound, and we've proven that. Again, as far as our other options, I believe that we have to look at every single option that's available to us, whether at the city level or state level, for progressive revenue. We just have a few obstinate individuals that are more aligned with the interests of corporations that are ultimately stalling what could be a full-out revolution in this city. And the people of Chicago want it. They want it desperately. I'm going to fight hard every single day to ensure that that actually comes to fruition.
However, we spoke with some alders who found the mayor's budget assessment to be misleading. Alders Samantha Nugent and Brian Hopkins told us the mayor's administration slow-walked or didn't even try to implement their ideas to raise revenue for the city. So they feel that the mayor's proposal to tax corporations more is just short-sighted, arguing it could put Chicago at a competitive disadvantage if we were to implement those ideas.
His administration was the one that is in charge of administering these new revenue sources, particularly things like debt collection. That's an administrative responsibility. The legislative branch can't do anything about affecting that other than set the budget, which we've done. And he has really dropped the ball. His administration told us when we passed the budget that they didn't intend to follow up with some of these requirements that we imposed by passing it with the city council majority.
So next week, City Council is going to be holding a hearing where it's part of the mid-year budget outlook. So Alderman Hopkins said City Council can still course correct, and he feels that they have the votes necessary in order to do that there. But also you have the mayor saying this is the opportunity to work collaboratively because in just the next couple of months, we got to talk about next year's budget as well.
Exactly. Well, we know that you will be keeping an eye on that.
I just can't help but laugh when I see this stuff because it's so crazy. Literally, not long ago, we were just talking about the city of Chicago raising property taxes on folks to try to cover the deficit. Where you had, in some cases, some people's property taxes went up 100%. 100%. That is absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. And the people in the city were absolutely furious over it. And now you're telling me that there's another budget deficit? You're spending way too much money. Like, this stuff is just so simple. It's so simple and basic that it's mind-boggling that people in the Democrat Party, one, continue to vote for this stuff. Because let's remember, Lori Lightfoot, who I used to call Beetlejuice, she had the same issues It was budget deficit after budget deficit after budget deficit, right? It was the same situation just about every single year when she was the mayor of Chicago. And now it's the same thing. And these people continually vote for this stuff. And then they're upset when their property taxes get raised or when they're hit with other types of taxes. And it's like, bro, you're voting for this. This is what you're voting for. Or they're upset because, these little YNs are running rampant in the city of Chicago. These teen takeovers. I literally just saw a clip earlier today of a teen takeover, whatever you want to call it, and police breaking it up. And bro, these kids were like running across the tops of cars, parked along the side of the street, whatever. People are at home. These kids were literally sprinting across the tops of the cars. You know how many windshields they probably busted while doing that? How many sunroofs they done fell through and cracked and all types of stuff? But it's going to continue to happen because this is what they voted for. Mayor Brandon Johnson, these Democrats always want to blame Trump for everything, but they're the ones running these cities ragged. It's just like, I don't get it. I really don't get it, man. And the same exact thing or similar stuff is happening in every single Democrat-run big city, including a city like Seattle. Check it out.
Seattle is leading the nation on a list that no one wants to top. Office vacancy rate is 36.5% in downtown Seattle, now the highest of any major U.S. city. Since 2020, downtown Seattle has lost around 30,000 jobs. That's the same year Seattle passed its payroll tax, targeting large companies with employees making high salaries. According to the Downtown Seattle Association, the city's record business taxes are a major factor in the job loss and for its high office vacancy rate. Today, I spoke with John Scholes, president of the DSA, as Mayor Katie Wilson considers more taxes as a way to plug a nearly $500 million budget shortfall in the next 3 years. Mayor Katie
Did you hear what she said? We're not going to check our spending. We are going to tax you even more to cover this deficit.
Wilson said back in June that more taxes are on the table, including the expansion of the payroll tax, as you know, aka the Jumpstart tax. Thoughts on that regarding the expansion of the payroll tax down the road, possibly?
Well, I think it's the wrong move for Seattle, and it would continue, I think, to push jobs outside of our city. And we don't need more business taxes in Seattle. We need more businesses located here paying taxes. And I think it's important for the city to spend within their means. They haven't done that over the last 5 or 6 years. They've spent beyond the revenues that they've collected, and they've tried to make up the difference by putting a lot more taxes on Seattle employers, which have sent a lot of jobs elsewhere.
What about the people who say, there was a recent report that said the GDP was very strong, showing the economy was very strong in Washington state just this year. The sky is not falling. Much of the slowdown is AI and tech companies who are laying people off. And it's not really the taxes or the politics of downtown Seattle. Do you buy that?
There's a lot of turbulence and headwinds, and I do think Seattle is in a unique position relative to many other major metros. If you look at the top 30 major metropolitan areas in the U.S., we're near the bottom when it comes to job growth over these last 4 years. So, yes, certainly COVID and shifts in how tech companies are hiring and investments in AI and layoffs and inflation and national and global turmoil that has created a lot of uncertainty economically are factors, but those are factors that other cities are facing as well, and many of those cities are growing jobs, and Seattle hasn't.
Mayor Wilson has a tough road ahead of her, and much of this budget deficit, of course, she inherited. And again, as I mentioned, it's nearly $500 million. If you were across the table from her, what solutions, other solutions or advice would you give to her, in your opinion, that could solve this?
Well, first, I think we have to acknowledge the realities here is that the city doesn't have a budget deficit. They have more revenue than they had last year, more revenue last year than they had the year before. What they have is a spending problem, and they've spent beyond those revenues. You can get new revenue. You can grow the tax base by making Seattle just a fabulous place to do business. And by filling spaces in downtown Seattle, whether it's office space or ground floor, that produces more tax revenue. We think that's the strategy. Grow the pie. Make this place the best place to do business, the easiest place to open a restaurant or a retail outlet. We've got lots of empty office space in downtown, nearly 20 million square feet of vacant space. And, you know, that's not a great deal for those folks that own those buildings, but it's not a great deal for Seattle residents either, because the value of those buildings is about half of what it was just 4 or 5 years ago. And so that property tax burden really shifts to residents. Those buildings were paying a lot more 5 years ago to contribute to city property taxes, but also school district property taxes and the county and state property taxes than they are today. And that property tax burden shifts to residents. So if you care about affordability, you ought to care about downtown Seattle having a high vacancy rate, and we should be working every day to lower that rate, make downtown attractive for companies to locate here, to fill those spaces, to raise the value of those properties, to take some of the burden off residents in Seattle.
Bingo. And it's all so simple. It is so simple. Stop taxing the crap out of people, and maybe businesses were trying to tax the crap out of corporations, and maybe these businesses won't leave. Then you'd have more tax revenue. Like, who would have thought of that? It's like, bro, this isn't rocket science. You don't have to be a genius to figure this stuff out. And yet, time after time after time again, you see and hear about these same exact types of stories from Democrats. Oh, budget deficit. Tax more, tax more. We need to tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the corporations. Oh, our downtown is empty. 20 million square feet of vacant space. It's the same thing in Chicago. Property values of the buildings, because they're vacant, have dropped. Our revenue has plummeted. Where are we going to get the money from? Well, we're going to have to raise property taxes on the people. Every single time, bro. Like, I'm a little frustrated. It's just like, bro. And I don't even vote for these folks, right? But I'm frustrated because it's like, this doesn't take a genius to figure this stuff out. Like, to me, bro, they have to be doing this intentionally. You know, they have to be doing this intentionally, because there's no way anybody in their right mind would just continue to do this, run through the same cycle of tax more, tax more, tax more. People leave, up, well, you got to tax more. You know, it's just like, what in the... They have to be doing this on purpose. There's just no way. There's no way. They want to send these big cities into just complete and utter chaos, and that's the only explanation for it. But as always, y'all get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Stay safe out there. Peace and love. I'm out.